We first met Cecilia Gonzalez and Jason Rochester in 2019 when I spoke to them about Cecilia's self-deportation. Cecilia and Jason have been married for 14 years and have an 8-year-old son, Ashton, together. But for the last 3 years, they've been raising their child from opposite sides of the United States-Mexico border after Cecilia left for Mexico in 2018 when Donald Trump was president, not realizing this meant a permanent 10-year bar for re-entry into the United States of America. They are now working with the group American Families United, which recently introduced a bill into Congress that would review family separations based on deportation and inadmissibility on a case-by-case basis. With me now together in Mexico to update us on their situation and to discuss the bill are Cecilia and Jason and Ashton. Welcome. How you guys holding up?
Good.
So let's start with a little background about the situation you are currently in. Cecilia, you crossed the border twice and got caught twice, coming from Mexico to the United States without a visa. And then I believe the third time you crossed again and you lived in America for a while. Tell us about after you crossed that third time.
Well, the third time I was 22. I met Jason in 2004. Mm-hmm. We got married in 2007.
You have almost a 20-year relationship and a marriage for 14 or 15 years now, right?
We just celebrated our 14-year anniversary.
And you have how many children together?
One
child. And that this cute boy here, Ashton, who looks like his dad, right? Ashton, everyone says you look like dad. You have the same face. No?
He's pretty like his mom, I think.
Now, in 2016, you were aware of Cecilia's immigration status, right? You fell in love. It didn't matter whether she had a green card or not. You said, this is the woman I want to be with for the rest of my life. You yourself are a born U.S. citizen. How'd you guys meet?
We had mutual friends, and we used to work together. Took a liking to her, like when I first met her. And she was being more cautious, I guess, because of her immigration situation. And she was afraid to tell me about it. And so it took a while before we could ever even really get into a relationship because she was scared. And eventually, because of one of the friends that had told me she was undocumented, because I didn't really care and he thought I needed to know. And after that came out, we were able to start a relationship and she was more comfortable. And that was really where everything started as a true relationship, because I told her, we can work on it, we can fix it, not knowing her true situation because we didn't know the law. I didn't know that she had a permanent bar, but I don't think that it would have mattered. We would have worked it out.
So when did you find out?
It wasn't until after she'd already left, because our first lawyer didn't do us justice, and he allowed us to get into the system and got her a work permit and things that we should have never even done in the first place. And he always said that it was not a big deal. I'll have you back in 6 months, even deported. So in our minds, it was not a big deal. When we went to her last meeting in 2017, we had consulted another lawyer, and she did a FOIA before we went. And she says, I'm not going to take your case unless I do a FOIA. So we did the FOIA, we went to the meeting, and then we decided that she was going to leave the country. And then after she was out of the country, a couple of months later, we found out that she had a permanent, but it was too late.
Well, number one, she has a permanent bar for permanent residence. There's always, hopefully, a waiver for a non-immigrant for some humanitarian parole into the United States. You always, and this goes for everybody out there, you always need to do a FOIA first to find out what all the issues are before you leave. That lawyer was correct in doing it, and then still even gave you incorrect advice, not knowing the law. You should never have left the United States ever. Now, in 2016, Donald Trump was running for election, and he was talking about Mexicans being criminals, rapists, bad hombres, and you voted for him, ironically.
Yeah.
You were not concerned about your wife at that moment.
No, because of the bad hombres. I thought that he was referring to the people that cause trouble, the criminal, right, the drug dealers, the gang members. I mean, My wife's not a bad hombre.
He tricked you. Trump gets elected, Cecilia. You started getting scared.
Yeah.
You scared about that somebody was going to come knock on your door and arrest you?
Yeah.
Okay, so because your situation was that immigration was allowing you to remain in the United States and was providing you with a work permit and using their discretion not to deport you, and in return was allowing you to accept a work permit and work and keep your family together. Now, Donald Trump become the president. He says he wants to deport everybody. You're now nervous to go to your next check-in with ICE. You have to go every year. And they then decide on a year-by-year basis whether or not to literally handcuff you at this hearing and deport you, or put you in jail and then deport you, or say, okay, you can stay another year. And, while Obama was president, you were comfortable. They would allow you to stay. And now Trump becomes president. Everybody's a bad hombre from Mexico. And you go to this lawyer and you say to the lawyer, what should I do? Because if you go, you run the risk of getting arrested. And if you don't go, there's a warrant out for your arrest and they come knock on your door, or you go run for the rest of your life, and you don't want to be a fugitive for the rest of your life. So that's the fear that you have. And you go to the lawyer and the lawyer says, I'm not talking to you.
Yeah, he wouldn't even speak with us.
It's terrible. So what did you do from there?
We purchased plane tickets
We purchased the tickets
for the day
for the day
after the meeting, so we could have proof saying that we were ready to leave.
This was your own decision. Okay. And then you left for Mexico.
Yes.
Now, you had said you believed at one point that you'd be able to return in 6 months. Was that in your head as well?
Well, because of what our first lawyer told us, it's not a big deal. I've had people with multiple entries. I've gotten their green card. I've had this happen. These were his words. Even if she got deported, I'd have her back in 6 months. And so in our minds, she doesn't have a really bad issue. It's not a big deal. But not being lawyers, we didn't know about the IRA law back in 96 that basically prevents that.
Yeah, but on the second deportation, that's what it prevents. On the first one, there's a waiver, but on the
second one, you're screwed.
Screwed, correct.
Yep.
Now, at the time, your son, he was 4 years old. What did you do with it? You left him in the United States, or you took him with you?
We all came down together.
We all came together and they left.
And when did you discover that you would not be able to return?
Well, we had the lawyer that we had consulted to do the FOIA because she had good credentials, but it was already after the fact that we had said she would leave. So we didn't know what the outcome was going to be. So we were going to see if she could do the work to get her back. And obviously, once she got the results of the FOIA, it was several months after Cecilia had left. And so we found out at that moment that she had a permanent 10-year bar, which she said there's nothing we can do until the law changes.
All right, so now Ashton comes back to the United States with Jason, and I understand at some point he got diagnosed with cancer.
6 months later, he was actually visiting Cecilia for the summer. While in Mexico, he'd only been here like 2 weeks, and he had a large protrusion on his left side, and she noticed it. We sent pictures to his pediatrician in Atlanta, and they said that he needed to be seen. So she went and had a local hospital here see him, and they did, I think, a CT scan, and it ultimately revealed that he had Wilms tumor.
So then you had to bring him back to the US. He did all of his treatment with Jason being the sole caregiver.
Yep.
And took care of him in the hospital. That must have been very traumatizing for the entire family. I mean, not only to have your child have cancer, and it's traumatizing for him, traumatizing for Jason, and also traumatizing for you, Cecilia, as the mother, not being able to care for your son.
Yes.
You can only imagine what Ashton is going through and not understanding what's going on with him, not understanding why his mom's not there.
I remember when he was in the hospital, he just kept telling me, Mommy, I want to see you. I want you to be here with me. So that was really hard to me to hear that from him.
Right.
I just keep thinking about his face laying on the bed in the hospital, and just, I can't forget it.
And how long was he in the hospital?
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
How is Ashton doing today? Most importantly,
He's good.
he had a kidney removed.
Yep.
Did he go through chemotherapy, radiation?
Yep, both.
And is he on any treatments now?
No, his next visit when he comes back from Mexico, he'll be going to what they call a survivor's clinic, which means that he has been satisfactory every time he does any kind of scans or everything. And so everything looks good. And then he'll start doing 6-month checkups, and eventually it'll span out to a year, and then so on.
Ashton, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
How you feeling?
Great.
And how often do you see your mom?
This time every day.
Okay. But what happens when you go back to school in September?
I see her remotely.
You see her remotely, and then you go visit her. You miss her?
I mean, if I see her on remote, no, I don't miss her whenever I see her on my iPad. So
That's nice. So
yeah.
Well, whenever he gets here, he doesn't want to leave her alone.
that's what I'm sure. I'm
He wants
sure.
to stay with me.
He wants to sleep in the bed with her. He wants
sure.
to hold her.
Yeah, well, he's being tough.
It's normal that in Ashton's mind that he sees mommy on FaceTime and Zoom all the time, that when you ask, do you miss her? Because to him, this is a normal situation. It's not unusual. So yeah, he sees her all the time. So no, he doesn't miss her, but that's not normal to everybody else. He doesn't realize it in his young mind that this isn't a normal situation, but it's been half of his life almost.
What happened when he was going through the cancer treatments and you applied for the humanitarian parole? What did the Trump administration say?
They denied it.
Was there a reason, or it just says denied?
It just
Denied.
said denied because she had multiple injuries, I think is what the actual letter said.
Did anybody call the U.S. Embassy after and spoke to the head person in charge there? Hey, let's look at this again. Let's have a heart.
We had an info pass meeting that she went back to Mexico City, but that was
it. Okay. You got to speak to the head person there, because the consular officer doesn't look at anything.
yes.
And you got to literally scream and yell to the top guy there. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. They would re-review it again at a higher level.
Really?
Yes.
See, no one ever told us to do that.
Right. What year was this?
2018.
2018.
So what, if anything, did you do after that?
Everyone told us there's nothing that we could do. There was no other course of action. I even asked my attorney if we could file another humanitarian parole, and she said you'd be wasting your money, and I can't do it knowing that it'll be denied.
I don't think you're wasting your money anymore. Consular officers rotate every 18 months to 24 months. There's a new presidential administration. I believe you would not be wasting your time if you did it again now. I would think if it's done well, you would have a good chance.
Yeah.
So are you doing that again now?
We are considering it, yes.
Yes, I would consider it very highly. I think the parole is the way to go over trying to apply for a visa and a waiver. The parole would allow you to enter the US, and then you can extend it locally at the immigration office on a year-by-year basis, just like you were doing before, versus a visitor's visa is a one-time thing and go home. Have you spoken to any congressmen or senators now that there's a Democratic majority across the board about doing a private bill? Because you're involved in politics now. So, your congressman or your senator can do a private bill and just attach it onto anything that passes.
I haven't tried a private bill because I know they're so difficult.
They are.
I am going to contact them about anything like that as well.
How do you juggle your job and traveling back and forth, having a long distance relationship with your wife?
Just a lot of virtual. We see each other. We talk on the phone all the time, several times a day. We try to do virtual as often as possible. It's a little harder for me because I work a lot of times 14-hour days, and I drive a tractor trailer for UPS, which it's kind of hard to do virtual while you're driving.
Sure. When did you first get involved with American Families United?
Or when we did our first national interview with LA Times, the journalist, the story actually found American Families United, and she said, have you heard of this group? And I contacted them, and a lot of my contributions are with media because I've had a lot of stories with like LA Times and stuff like that. And every time we have a story, it's something that pushes the American Families United as well.
Now, what's going on with the American Families United Act?
American Families United Act, HR 2920. It will help families stay together that are in the United States, that are American citizens, that are married to undocumented immigrants. And it will help the undocumented immigrant that's married to a citizen that's been deported to be able to be reunited with their families in America. if we can get senators to get on board ahead of time and decide that they want to sponsor it, the more co-sponsors that we can get on either side, Republican and Democrat, the better.
There's a lot of people, just like your wife,
Yes.
who are not eligible for waivers, either because of immigration violations, what your wife committed, or because they did something bad and have a criminal conviction decades ago.
Yeah.
And for 10, 20, 30 years have been good, decent people with families and paid a price 20 years ago and maybe went to jail and now is being punished a second time for life because of something they did a long time ago. And what the American Families United Act does is say, instead of piling everybody into one group and say permanent bar, permanent deportation, automatic deportation, automatic inadmissibility, you can't even apply for a waiver. You can never live with your family again, ever. Let's take a look at this on a case-by-case basis and determine if separating this family is a fair, justified separation, or separating this family, like in your case, is extraordinarily unjustified and an injustice to everything we stand for here in the United States of America. Family, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Can't pursue happiness. You have no liberty to live with the woman you love. You have a loving family, a child going through cancer care. It's an injustice. There are families out there that are going to remain separated, and whatever this person did that gets them deported or doesn't allow them to re-enter the United States, there's a justification for it. And sometimes when people do bad things, other people suffer. But a lot of times the bad things that the law says is bad is not so bad, or happened so long ago that how could we even consider it today? The American Families United Act puts fairness back into the law. Do you know how many Republicans and Democrats are supporting this bill right now?
It was introduced on April 30th this year. It's bipartisan. It was introduced by Veronica Escobar. She was the champion of the bill, and then co-sponsored by David Vallejo. He's a Republican out of California.
By getting your story out there as much as you can, you are doing the best thing possible to try to get this approved. And I'll tell you why. Because if you do a poll of Americans, do you think people who get deported should be able to return to the United States? And that was your poll. Most would say no. If you got deported, why would you come back to the United States? If you say American voter, do you think that a woman who never committed a crime, who is married to a U.S. citizen, who for 15 years and has a child who is a cancer survivor and is being separated from their spouse, do you think that this couple deserves to live together in America? Everybody would say yes. So it's about really painting a picture rather than just a one sentence, if you got deported, you don't come back. Okay, because there's a lot of layers to immigration, and it's very easy for somebody to say, kick them out or keep them out. But when you start peeling away all of the layers of immigration, that's when people say, that's not fair.
Yeah, which I've had that personally. A lot of people that I have met and I've told our story, and they would be like hardcore, we don't want them here and stuff like that. And it's like, well, you know me, you know my wife, you know our situation. It's like, well, that's just not right. Obviously, it's like that for a lot of people. It's not just me, but it's not ultimately about her. It's about us. It's really about him. That's why I try to tell Ashton all the time, people don't want to see me. They want to see him because he's the one that's really being affected in the story.
How do people who are watching now help support this bill and get this passed this year?
If everyone's willing to contact their representatives, it's easy. Just go on AmericanFamiliesUnited.org/champions. Fill out your email and your address, and it'll put you who your representatives are.
Now, you're in touch with Alejandra Juarez, who also appeared on our show. Alejandra was deported in 2018. She recently was allowed back in the U.S. under the Biden administration. Her deportation was even showcased during the National Democratic Convention. Now, has her case had any effect on Cecilia's?
We have been talking to her about how she did what she did. We were texting her the other day, and we stay in communication, trying to get advice from her. What are key elements to the case? Because obviously those are important.
What are your American dreams?
Obviously, to have my family back together and be able to live a normal life, continue to work at a job that I've been at for 20, almost 21 years. I'd like to be able to retire there and not have to think about, if I want to be with my family, I have to separate myself from a job that provides good money, benefits, pension, all the things that people work so hard for. So it's my job, my country, or my wife and my family. So if I can have all those in one box, that would be my American dream.
Do you think your country let you down?
Oh, yes, definitely. I think they can fix it, but I think they definitely dropped the ball.
Cecilia, what's your dreams?
My dream is to go back to America and have a normal life, because this is not normal for us, and take her then and be able to go with Ashton to his appointments, because we still have more years. And just take it to school, like it's my dream, also my biggest dream since he was starting kindergarten. So I'm missing a lot of those times.
Birthdays, Christmas.
Birthdays, holidays,
Mhm.
anniversaries.
Ashton, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
What are your dreams for the future? What would you like to see happen?
Everything.
Everything?
Broad brush.
All right. Cecilia Gonzalez, Jason Rochester, Ashton Rochester, thank you very much for coming on. I hope and pray it works out very soon for you.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.